What's the worst nice guy experience you've ever had? Story 1. Lost one of my friends on a crazy night out in an unfamiliar city, not picking up her phone. We looked for her for over an hour in a half-mile radius. Finally, we got a call from a nice guy from the bar who allegedly saw her wandering alone and had brought her to his apartment, heard her phone blowing up, and called me back. She was indeed asleep on his couch. We thanked him, packed her up, and went on our way. A couple days later, he called me again to ask me on a date. I politely declined. I had at the time, but would have said no regardless. That was apparently unacceptable, and he told me I owed it to him for not raping my friend when he had the chance. Literally, he told me he could have done whatever he wanted to her and didn't need to call me at all, and it was the least I could do to thank him. I let him know that you don't get a trophy for not raping someone. He cussed me out and went on about how he's a veteran and how dare I and blah blah blah, hung up and blocked him. Entitled Creep. Story 2. A horrible date with a nice guy named Josh back in 2002. We went hiking on our date. He spent the entire time bragging about how smart he was, smarter than everyone he's ever known. So smart, he knew not to go to a university because community college is just as good for much less. Everyone who goes to a university is an idiot. Everyone who doesn't do things the exact way Josh does them is a low IQ moron. All of Josh's co-workers are idiots. He was the best Geek Squad employee in history, and Best Buy would fall apart without him. Josh also had a lot of trouble finding a woman because women often have low IQs and can't keep up with his intellect. Women are dumb, not me though. I'm okay. I could not wait to get home and block the guy. Edit, I met him on personals. He came off okay there and we arranged a date after a short conversation. Yes, we had AEM and Messenger back then, and that's where I blocked him. I don't know where Josh is today, I don't care. I don't care what his side of the story is. He was and probably still is. No, I wasn't fat. Josh's attitude and horrible personality are 100 Josh's fault, not mine. Oh my god, there was this guy who I would speak to on my commute. He was very awkward and I made polite small talk, but really, I just wanted to read my book. Anyway, one day he comes up to at the train station and says he saw me out with my husband and kids. He then went mental, accused me of leading him on, called me threatened to kill himself, broke down crying, begged me to leave my husband for him, then asked to no one in particular why does this keep happening to him. Edit, for those of you that read this and thought she sounds like she could do with a pic, let me assure you I don't. Be better. Story 3. Hit it off with this one guy while out with friends. He was super sweet, said all the right things, and we were flirting for a while. Finally, I went to leave with a friend and got into her passenger seat, was thinking of maybe meeting up with him until he came to my friend's car, banged on the window with his fists and asked, "Do you want to," before I could even roll the window down. I said no. Started to roll the window up and he put his fingers in it so I couldn't. Just stood there with an angry face for a while, called me and stomped away. Story 4. Someone was my friend and they were around me at parties and stuff. I got super drunk at one and I was supposed to feel safe there. What he didn't know is that I heard him saying as he put me into his friend's car, "She's going to be easy tonight," to said friend. The friend was a gentleman and he laid me in his bed and then went to get his Nintendo Switch, sat on the floor, and I woke up in time to see him playing and we became best friends. Thankfully, he never tried anything and I cut the other guy out of my life. Story 5. Joined a gaming group, slowly started to speak to someone and make a close friend. 3 months went on. Eventually, he said he liked me. I said I didn't feel the same. He took it well and said he was happy to remain friends. We had exchanged Christmas cards before it all went to so he knew where I lived. Then the little quips of intensity started, until he was calling me 50 times a day. All day, every day, needed to stay in contact. Slowly, chats turned to harassment every day, making up stories of things I hadn't done, berating me, and blowing up if I didn't reply within a 30-second window. I tried to cut him off, but then it would make it 10x worse to where he was screaming to everyone that he was going to kill himself if I don't speak to him. I was only 18 at the time. It was easier to just keep the peace than to try and get away. Then, the gifts started. Sending things to my house, turning up at my house multiple times a week, even though he lived 300 miles away. He told everybody a completely different story to what he was actually doing to make himself look better and come out on top. It only stopped when I contacted the police. His entire family still blamed me. Story 6. We bought groceries together for a work event, and he insisted on putting all the groceries into the car because I'm superior to him. I had to nervously laugh my way out of that and say, "No, of course not, haha." When we got back into the car, he asked if I was in a relationship. I said no, but that I also wasn't looking. But I had a feeling he was going to ask. He said, "Not even with me?" I said, "Haha. No, not with anyone. Sorry." He said I was being really rude by not even accepting a date. When we got back to work, he complained to everyone that I made him do all the shopping and that I then started name-calling in the car. He also said I wouldn't stop asking him on a date. Since everyone saw him bring the groceries back in, because he had strongly insisted at least that part looked true. And I was so scared because I didn't know how to sort the whole thing out. Luckily, the camera in the car had audio. Edit. I really appreciate all the advice, but this was a few years ago and has been resolved. He was fired soon after for apparently something else. Story 7. Myself. I grew up thinking that the effort you put into something would equal the outcome. Therefore, when I saw the scene in 10 Things I Hate About You, where Heath Ledger's character sings a song in front of a crowd of people and Julia Stiles swoons, I thought that was what you should do. I did that. It did not work. I mortified my crush and myself. That's just one instance. It took me a long time to figure out that people are not robots or machines, and effort does not equal result. Sometimes people just don't feel that way about you, and that's okay. In fact, just accepting their feelings is way more respectful than heaping adoration or praise on them, because your first attempt didn't work. On top of that, just letting go is way better for your mental health. It felt absolutely freeing when I was casually dating someone, and she called me to tell me that she had committed to someone else and could no longer date me. And my response was simply, "Thank you for letting me know. I appreciate that, and I wish you the best of luck." I really liked her, but by moving on and realizing it just wasn't meant to be helped me immensely. All good now. My dating life in my 30s was way better with this outlook, and I've been married for 7 years with 2 kids. Nice guys can change, but it comes with recognizing people are not computer programs meant to be hacked. Story 8. Was my friend for 7 years. 7 years. We supported each other in college, studying. He asked and I set him up with a friend. They dated, broke up. I stayed friends with both. Helped each other move at last. 5 times. Endless resume editing. Relationship advice. Introduced him to people as my brother. Maximum contact was an occasional hug. Found myself single near a big birthday. While crying about the fresh breakup on the phone with him, he decided that I should try dating him, or at least hook up, and that I owed it to him because he's always been there for me. Excuse me? I had always been there for him too, and I didn't think anything was owed to me. Story 9. I met him when I was 16, he was 20, while playing League of Legends. We kept getting in the same games and eventually just added each other and queued up. We lived in the same city and there was a meetup for other gamers, so we had met in person a couple months later after playing every day together. I didn't really have a lot of friends, so I did cling to him during these meetups, where we would all go to this internet cafe and get pizza and play LOL. He was nice. He would pick me up and drive me to the city or take the train to mine and me down and teach me about public transport. I truly saw him as a best friend. Eventually, I guess he got impatient. He would be jealous that I had a crush on a guy in my grade, lamenting about what this boy had that he didn't. He'd bring up all the things he did for me, how he never asked to be repaid or anything back. He wanted us to lose our virginities to each other. He wanted me. He never did anything to me when I was underage. A silver lining, I suppose. I drifted myself away from him and he let go. 2 years pass. I'm 18. I see him again when there's a big LOL event in our city and he starts talking to me. I was naive. I forgave him. Because how could I hate someone for wanting me? He offers to drive me home. I accept because it's late and I've overstayed in the city talking to him. He's changed. Apparently, he's gone to gym, got fit, started seeing girls and lost his virginity. Good for him, I said. He talks about how he loves it when women are smaller than him. Like me, how these Asian girls love how big he is, how he throws them around. I'm uncomfortable because I am an Asian girl. He asks if I've done anything yet. I guess he thinks that my aversion to dating him before was because I was frigid. I'm nearly home. Nearly there. I text my dad, ask him to meet me in front of the house because I'm scared. He then drops the question if I'd like to see his penis. I refuse. He then asks me to change the song. I look down and yay, he has it out. He's smiling, thinking that I'd be impressed or overcome with lust? Quite the opposite. I open the car door while it's still moving. He's swearing and stopping the car, and I just get out and tell him to never talk to me again. I'm close to my home and I see my dear dad, standing menacingly in the dark at the end of the driveway. I run to my dad, and he charges down the street to the car. I get back inside and not long after my father does too. I'm blocked from that guy on every platform I had him on, except Snapchat, where he later sends me a slurry of abuse before blocking me too. Not much is said, but it's not needed. I love my dad and the day he saved me. Story 10. He was about twice my age. I was 25-ish. He was about 50, close to twice my weight. Not in muscle, wasn't active in the slightest compared to my incredibly active lifestyle. At the time, didn't have any hobbies. I didn't find him attractive at all, and we didn't have anything in common, but he got mad that I wouldn't give him a chance because he was a nice guy. Then he spread rumors around the workplace. Yes, we worked together, which was also a factor in my decision to decline pursuing a relationship, that I was a mean, cold-hearted tease, because I flirted with him but wouldn't go out with him. Oh, P.S. The flirting he was talking about was me saying hi to him when I passed him on the factory floor. Story 11. I used to daily drive a heavily modified high-HP turbo car. One day, the turbo decided to eat itself. No worries. It was on the top in front of the engine, so easy to access. Guy was a friend and only a friend of mine, or so I thought. and offered to help. This is important. He offered. I never asked. So he comes by, helps take the turbo out. We hang out, shoot the yaw, drink a beer, or a few, finish up the removal, and he goes on his way. I then send the turbo back for warranty. Turbo comes back maybe a month later. In the meantime, I had just met FH, who happened to be a professional mechanic. When I mentioned I couldn't hang out with him on a weekend day, he asked why, so I explained. He offered to come help with install. I said thank you, and that was that. He came over, helped with install, we grabbed some food after, and then he went home. So eventually, Guy asks when we are reinstalling the turbo, and I told him it was already done. He got a little weird, but apparently I missed the whole thing. Then he started digging. Like I wasn't capable of doing the job myself I am. He eventually kept asking who helped me with the install. I told him FH. His reply? Well, I bet he at least got laid for his hard work. I guess eventually he did, since we've been together for almost 18 years, but not because he helped me do something I could do myself. TLDR nice guy thought that helping me work on my car was going to get him laid, even though I absolutely didn't need his help. Story 12. Dude I met at my college's computer lab while I was studying. I used to be in there at all hours of the night pulling all-nighters, and he would come over and study with me. I used to go get coffee from the nearby McDonald's, and he offered to come with me, which I agreed to. He purchased my cup for me, and he was overall pretty nice and attractive, so one day I agreed to go on a date to a 247 diner. After, we ended up walking through a dark park and I was kind of uncomfortable, but I made it out. One of these nights we were studying and he suggested we go back to his dorm room to study instead. He kept offering me some of his Adderall, which I politely declined. He wasn't studying, he was laying on his bed, so after a bit I made an excuse to go back to my dorm room. He offered to walk me. On the way, we made a plan to go to the movies, but he wanted to make a deal that I had to drink. On the walk we were talking and playing around, and somehow I ended up in an entirely too tight headlock. It was dark, we were alone, and I was in a headlock. He eventually released it, and I continued on as if there was no problem. However, that was strike two, and it was clear what he was trying to do with this movie deal. When I got back, I blocked him and never spoke to him again. Stopped going there to study and avoided him anytime I spotted him. Story 13. Most baffling was a guy at work who offered me a lift home. When we got to my place, he was all, "Aren't you going to invite me in?" And I was like, no? Then he told everyone at work I was a tease LOL. Story 14. He helped me move, brought me coffee, and always acted like a great friend until I started dating someone else. And he completely flipped, called me ungrateful, and said I owed him a chance. Classic nice guy behavior. Kindness with conditions. Story 15. Knew this guy in my freshman year of college. Super nice. Always willing to go out of his way for people. One night, I was at a party with him and my girlfriends, and we all got completely crunk-wasted, except for one friend who was DD. Turns out he tried to get me to come home with him, and when my sober friend told him no, absolutely not. He went into this whole spiel about how I owed him and I needed to come home with him. We all got out of there immediately, and I don't even remember any of it. Story 16. My friend group was out dancing, and we talked to a group of men one of us knew. I met them for maybe 30 seconds. In a dark club, and went right back to dancing with my friends. One of those men asked a friend for my number, and he stalked me for 3 years. The Norwegian police took him to court, and he was still messaging me from new numbers telling me we were made for each other until he was sentenced. Story 17. He still does in the same lab as me. We're both from the same part of the world, and he insisted he could predict the type of person I was, that I like music, I enjoy spicy food, I want to get married and have kids. No. So does 99 of the world. Kept insisting we had so much in common. Then he asked me out for a team planning meet, but it would only be him and I. My gut told me to run, and I told that it wouldn't be appropriate, especially if it was meant to be a team thing. He tried to laugh it off, saying I was overthinking it, that it was just friendly. The last straw was when he tried to corner me in the lab, asking personal questions under the guise of just getting to know a colleague. I then told him unequivocally that if he needed to talk, make sure it was an email only. It didn't deter him, and it only stopped when HR got involved at my insistence. He stopped asking questions, but the stares didn't stop. Neither did the weird little comments slipped into casual conversations like, I know you better than you think or you'll come around. Story 18. I once went out with a nice guy named Matt, who said he loved soft girls with deep thoughts. Seemed poetic. Big mistake. On our date, he took me to this weird coffee shop with no menu because real connoisseurs know what to ask for. He then ordered for me without asking because he could tell what kind of girl I was. He kept calling me Kitten the entire time. I had never given him a nickname to use. He asked if I liked guys who cry, and when I said sure, I think it's healthy, he launched into a rant about how women say they want sensitivity but always go for jerks. Story 19. Realizing that I was being one, despite my best intentions. I doubt that I was the worst version of a nice guy that any of the women in my life were forced to deal with, and my behavior was born more out of ignorance than selfishness or malice. But it still hurts both emotionally and, physically. On some weird level, to remember my actions and the impact they had on people who I loudly asserted that I cared about. Story 20. My roommates and I were having a house party one evening with maybe 40 or so friends. This one gal gets really drunk, so we put her in my bedroom and closed the door. But we checked on her periodically. When I went to check on her, one guy we knew was in bed with her trying to convince her to wake up to sleep with him. He was actually a pretty nice guy and I liked chatting hanging with him, but I told him to GTFO of the room in my house right now in a very serious tone. He promptly left, and that was the end of it. He eventually married another friend and had kids and seems to have had a happy life together. Very bizarre and unexpected. Glad the gal was safe though. Story 21. I was friends with a group of people and closer to one guy in particular. I babysat his kid. He bought me dinner, very give and take type of friendship. One time I'm suicidal and really needed to go to the emergency room. Wanted to avoid large ambulance bill. So guy I'm close to takes me. Afterwards wouldn't stop hounding me to date him. I said no each time and was met with, but I took you to the hospital. It was heavily implied he would have just let me die if he knew ahead of time I would not or date him. How lovely. Story 22. I met a guy at work who seemed really cool. We would have cigs together every once in a while for months. I gave him my number but told him up front I wasn't interested in him in that way. He said that was fine, and he understood. We texted here and there, made plans to hang out, but we both couldn't make it the few times we did. Randomly, one day he was drunk and texting me flirty things, which I just kinda ignored. Following that day, he apologized, and I said it was okay and just reiterated I wasn't looking for anything like that. He continued to text me, nonstop, repeatedly, asking why I wasn't responding and why I gave him my number if I didn't want him. Because he clearly wanted me, and that's why he gave me his number, which I must have known. I told him it wasn't anything personal and that I wasn't over my ex. He then asked me to give him graphic details of my ex, like size, what made him so great, etc. I quickly cut the convo off. Later, he started doing the same things to me, saying, I'm just like every other woman, damaged goods, who blame all men for the actions of their ex. It became scary and I blocked him. Over a year later, he reached out to me from a burner FB account, telling me he now has a DUI and it's my fault because the night of our conversation he got drunk and went out driving. I responded saying, please don't talk to me. He wrote back saying, remind me again why you don't like me? Because I'm creepy? And are nice a guy? His words verbatim. Has a disturbing individual. Story 23. Freshman year, a guy in one of my classes offered to tutor me in stats. I said sure, he was good at it, and I actually needed the help. Every session, he brought me a little gift coffee, granola bar, handwritten poems. Yeah, I tried to tell him it wasn't necessary, but he brushed it off. Then one day I thanked him and said I finally passed the quiz. His response? Well, now you owe me a date, or at least a makeout session. I said no. He told everyone I'd been leading him on for months. Bro, I was just trying to understand standard deviation. Story 24 guys. Take note. So far in this thread, the things that make these men wildly unattractive is their behavior. The ones whose appearance is even mentioned are ones who either have a mismatch of ideal activity level or poor hygiene. Rule 1 being, be attractive is more about how you treat people and putting an effort into yourself and your hobbies than your genetics. Rule 2 being, don't be unattractive is about not treating women, or whoever you are interested in, like a piece of meat, whose only value is whether you her or not. Also, don't put other people down to try to make yourself seem better. Sincerely, a dude who is always surprised when I talk to my friends who are women about just how low the bar is for dateable men. Story 25. A lot of guys online just call you a right away. If they talk to you like they care. If they talk to you for 10 minutes, then you owe them type of logic. Story 26. If a guy insists he's a nice guy, I assure you, he is not. And read The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. Every one of these examples could have been in his book about the men's behavior that happened before these women were raped or killed. Story 27. This is the way this topic will go. Women will post their completely valid experiences with horrific men, wolves in sheep's clothing as it were. Some people will be justifiably outraged at their behavior. Some men will justify the nice guy and completely misunderstand what makes them a nice guy while giving all the signals of incel behavior themselves. Others will then use this as an excuse to trauma dump about how they were perceived wrongly by women in their lives or on dating apps. Insert some women only want bad boys for extra credit. Men need to understand that a nice guy is not what most of us are led to believe by other nice guys. They're actively more dangerous than normal people because their FOD is that they're friendly, lovely, affable, and not after the one thing. Women can see through this through experience. When they tell you it's a nice guy, trust me, there's no interpretation in 99.9 of cases. The world isn't split into nice guys and bad boys. Women want normal men who treat them normally in the vast majority of cases. and I will be downvoted by nice guys for pointing this out. Story 28. Date with a local guy while I was home for the summer living abroad many years ago. He was nice, cute, but trying a bit too hard and wanting to move really fast. I think I was 25 at the time and not imminently ready for marriage. After 2 dates, I just wasn't feeling it as he was love bombing me with all kinds of crazy lavish gifts, AirPods, expensive alcohol that I liked, etc. He had some money but wasn't crazy wealthy or anything from the beginning. When I declined a third date, he started sending the gift packages to my mom's house and always included a love note about how much he liked me and how desperately he wanted me to come over to his place for dinner sometime. The craziest was the last gift, which included 2 concert tickets to see Bon Iver in the European city I was currently living, saying how he would fly out and come to the show with me. Needless to say, I did not go, and the concert ironically ended up being cancelled by the artist. Guess it was never meant to be. And he promptly blocked me on all social media after that, LOL. Story 29. Haven't had any because I'm a man, but I've heard various horror story from friends. Perhaps the worst must have been with a girl that I was going out a few years ago. She had a lot of orbiters, but there was one in particular who had managed to break into her inner circle because he was playing the orbiter-long game of pretending to be her friend. That wasn't for a few months or anything. That guy had been hanging out with her for years and years, secretly liking her, but ostensibly claiming to be her friend and nothing more. And of course, this is a shitty thing to do, but at least most such people never actually muster up the courage to ever say anything, so for all intents and purposes, they sort of are friends. But this one was determined to find the perfect time to strike, the perfect opportunity to confess his feelings so that she would also reciprocate. Did he choose to take her out on a wonderful day of activities and reminiscing about their good times together and their compatibility as people before shooting his shot? No. Did he get her a nice, thoughtful gift before spilling the beans because he couldn't hold it in anymore? No. Did he straight up just tell her and ask her feelings because, at the end of the day, pretending to be someone's friend when you have ulterior motives is a shitty thing to do and better come clean late than never? No. He chose to confess his feelings a few days after her dad passed away from cancer because in his mind, her being vulnerable increased his chances. Yet another mark of a shitty person. Of course, it goes without saying that this same dude always talked any prospective boyfriend she might have met and constantly undermined any actual boyfriend she had until she broke up. Shitty, spineless behavior. Story 30. When I was in my 20s, I lived with my male coworker best friend for a year. I'm a lesbian and had a long-distance girlfriend at the time, and they formed their own friendship when she would come to visit. One weekend, I was away for a wedding, and behind my back, he moved her into our home. I was shocked when I came back to this surprise and she told me he was adamant about how I wanted her to move in, but I was too scared to ask her, so he wanted to surprise me. For the record, I did not want to live with her at that time. Well, within those first 6 months after she moved in, he was the standard nice guy. We all cohabitated well and formed an amazing friendship with family meals, movie nights, and outings. But then one night, he said he wanted to have a meeting with us. In a very serious and emotional moment for him, he told us that he wanted us to start a family together and that he would impregnate my girlfriend and we could all spend the rest of our lives living together. We thought he was joking, but he was almost on the verge of tears with how much this would mean to him and was in love with us both. We both shot the idea down and talked privately about how uncomfortable that was. Cut to the following months, he started pitting us against each other, not cleaning up, and was telling each other that the other was cheating. When we eventually decided to move out and eventually broke up, he immediately tried to date her, and she ended up cutting contact with him because he was so pushy. We tried to maintain an amicable friendship because we worked together, but he kept making weird comments my way, and I eventually got a new job. A year later, he asked me to go on a walk so we could try to repair the friendship, and he gave me a letter stating he was in love with us both, and he had never imagined dealing with heartbreak from 2 women. He blamed both of us for failing school, living in a shitty apartment, and not being where he wanted to be in life. It was so strange, manipulative, and heartbreaking as prior to living together. He was truly one of the nice guys. Story 31. I wish there were some way to burn every copy of every episode of the TV show The Big Bang Theory. While it was airing, this weird guy thought it was perfectly normal to follow me to my office on my first day of grad school. He stood at the door to block my only exit and proceeded to tell me that he had to follow me because otherwise he might not see me again. I had to nod along while he thought it made perfect sense to deliver a sales pitch for himself. Fortunately, the department had agreed to give me a new office near the receiving desk, so there'd always be other people near. But what a shitty start to the academic year. Story 32. Matched with a dude on Hinge last year, talked for a day or two and exchanged numbers. Sent him a selfie of me without makeup, like just for fun IDK it wasn't flirty and he got the metadata from that iPhone photo and sent me a Google Maps picture of the house I sent it from. Blocked him immediately, and then he somehow used my number or my address to find my full name, and then from there my email address. He sent me an email demanding to know what he did wrong, that he didn't understand my overreaction. Like, dude, Anyways, I don't text anyone off of the apps until after a first date. Such a weird situation, and I still can't believe he sent me an email being like, "You're the crazy one for reacting like this." He was just being nice, I guess. Story 33. My freshman year of high school, I became friends with a senior guy. He pretty quickly caught feelings and asked me out. I politely declined as I wasn't interested and wasn't allowed to date at all even if I had been. He seemed to take it well at first, but he never let me forget how he felt about me. Brought it up constantly. Every day, I kept gently reminding him that my feelings and my parents' rules had not and would not change, and he'd always say, "Oh, I know, I know. I don't expect anything from you. I just want you to know that you're loved." I decided it was fine, since he didn't expect anything from me, until he started to expect things from me. He'd ask me for a kiss every day. "Can I have a kiss?" "No." "Can I give you a kiss?" "No." "It doesn't have to be on the lips?" "No." "Come on, just on the cheek?" "No." "Forehead?" "No." "Back of the hand?" "No." We started having that exact conversation every single day, until one day, instead of a kiss, he asked for a hug, said he was sorry for being pushy, and he would try to be more considerate. I accepted his apology and hugged him, because at the time it seemed like a much more harmless request, and since we were surrounded by my other friends and classmates, I figured if he wouldn't try to get handsy, and he didn't me, he decided to try suffocating me instead. He was a lot bigger than me and lifted me up off the ground. He squeezed until my spine popped and the air was forced out of my lungs. I couldn't breathe well enough to call for help. I tried to tell him to let go and that he was hurting me, and he just smiled and whispered, "I know." I started to black out, but I kicked him in his stomach. He still didn't let go, but his grip loosened enough for me to wiggle one of my arms free, so I punched him in the face, which finally made him drop me. He tried to grab me again, so I punched him again. I went into fight or flight at that point and actually did black out, so my memories of what happened next are pretty fragmented, but the next thing I remember for sure is him crawling away in the dirt while someone held me back. According to my friends, I'd knocked him on his and jumped on top of him, trying to claw his eyes out while threatening to kill him, until one of them pulled me away. I explained to everyone what happened. Some people believed me. A lot of them didn't. After a week or so of people telling me that I overreacted and needed to apologize, I tried talking to him with a good friend watching from nearby. I asked him if he hurt me on purpose, and he said yes. I asked him why, and he said, "Because you're mine, and I can do whatever I want to you. You act like you don't belong to me, so I was punishing you. But you're mine, and you'll always be mine, because I'll always love you." I never spoke to him again. He tried following me around, but my friends, the ones I had left after everyone else, decided that I was the psychopath who was lying about and abusing a poor innocent man, made sure he never got close. And I got good at avoiding him, so he never got the chance to find out where I lived. A few months later, he graduated, and I thankfully never saw him again.